is Bob Milantich, retired from the NYPD. And our guest is also retired from the NYPD. He's a former New York City Councilman also, and a former New York State Senator. And he was a business owner, just like our last guest, in Brooklyn for many years. And he was my senator and my councilman, and I like to call him my friend. This is Marty Golden. Welcome to the show, Marty.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'm glad to be here and with your co-host and enjoying a good afternoon with good conversation that's hopefully going to help our city and state and nation get back on track.
Well, thanks, Marty. Marty, you're true blue. You love the city, you love the state of New York, you love the NYPD. You've been organizing some events lately to show love for the NYPD and love for the police profession in light of what's going on. What spurred you on to do this?
Well, I think our elected officials, they overreacted in trying to make some changes to what's going on, what they believe may be a problem in our cities. And by this city here, by adjusting the no bail, releasing people as they are arrested, and they're back on the street before the paperwork is even completed, and they're back at the scene of where they've been arrested from and committing a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth crime. That is the morale breaker of the police officer on the street that's trying to do his or her job. That's only part of it. Then you do a compression, what's supposed to be a chokehold. They put a compression bill in and pass it in the city of New York, which says if you take a guy, you're going to lock him up, and you go down on top of that individual, and you're on his back, or you got him in a headlock, you are now committing a crime. When that guy didn't want to go, when I was a police officer, did not want to get arrested, I had to fight that guy to take him down. And sometimes it got ugly. And then I got the cuffs on, and I took him in, and I locked him up. It was the possession of a gun, a burglary, a robbery, but these were serious crimes. Think about it. We got those two pieces of legislation. Then you have defunding by $1 million the New York City Police Department. Think about that. How can you take money away from the police department when shootings are up 300% and you have homicides off the chart? This reminds me of the times in the 90s, the crack epidemic, when you had Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg, and you say, well, Giuliani, he changed not only a city, but he changed a state, a nation, and a world. The policies that were created here under his police commissioners were policies that went on to make cities safe and save lives. Ladies and gentlemen, what we see happening right now, the morale in the street is shot. The people that own the streets are not the people that live here. We are frightened to death. The people in the communities are afraid to go out. There was a march just the other day outside Brooklyn Borough Hall. It was black, it was brown, it was white, it was women. It was saying, please, stop the shooting, stop the shooting. Stop this, please. We did the rallies to do the same thing, to say we support our cops. We gotta get back to the basics. We gotta keep people safe. Why do you move into a community? You move into a community for what? Safe environment, so you can raise a family. B, education. Get a good education for your children. C, a job. So you get a job so you can work. What do we have? We have that all falling apart here in the city of New York. The highest number of people leaving the city, 275 families a day leaving the city of New York. That's your base, your tax base. Why are they leaving? Not because of COVID-19, although that has something to do with it, but it's because of the crime that they see in the streets. So our rallies in Bay Ridge, in Dyker Heights, in Marine Park, brought out people, and they were black, and they were brown, and they were white, and they were Jewish, and they were Catholic, and they were Muslim, they were across the board, and they all stood together, facing each other, singing, "God bless America," one flag, one country, under one God. And that's what it's all about. And it's about bringing people together and keeping people safe and showing them morale for those police officers. And we got to do that. We got to change the track. We got to get rid of these elected officials that voted these bills in. We got to put in new elected officials that are going to change those laws. And that's not going to happen in 60 days. That's going to take years. By the time they change these laws and get back to basics, you realize how many people will have died, how many people will have been wounded. How do you go to a mother? These elected officials go to the mother of a dead child. Go to that mother and say you're sorry. You won't see them.
You don't see them going to the mother.
You're not going to see them. They're not going to, they don't come, we didn't fight at every rally they were invited. They didn't show up. They didn't show up.
Right.
Because they have no sympathy for these people. The biggest impact in our communities are going to be communities of color. They're going to be the biggest impact here in the city of New York. I witnessed it. I was a police officer. I fought in the streets to make this place safer. So did you guys. You know what we're talking about. We need to give that sense of security back to the people of our great city and to our communities, and take our communities back from the bad guys and give it back to the people that live in those communities.
Yeah, I don't think that people understand, and most of the crime in the city is in the black and brown neighborhoods, and that's really caused by economics. It's not because black and brown people are bad. But like 95 to 99% of the people in those neighborhoods are good. How many times I know it happened to me, you'd be in like a project building and someone would crack their door and say, "Officer, be careful." I don't live in that neighborhood or live in that project, and they know I'm there to help them, and they can't be heard, I guess, saying it out loud, so they would whisper, right? "Officer, be careful." And they were really appreciative that we were there, trying to suppress the crime so that they can raise their kids, like you said. Everybody wants safety for their children, right? It's breaking my heart, Marty, to see what's going on with the city, to see the crime going up. You used to own a business here in the city. Picture yourself now if you still owned that business. You'd be beside yourself, right?
It is still a family. My brother owns it. It's a family business. The
So
Bay
he
Ridge
must-
Manor.
is
Bay
he-
Ridge Manor is an empty catering hall waiting for, and they got a building next door. It's rentals that people aren't paying rent. How long do you think that can go on? Wait till the banks start to show this quarter coming up what paper they're holding. And you're going to see, I hope I'm wrong, the stock market's in a great position, it's continuing to grow, but that's not the basics of our economics. We got to get our jobs back. We need to put 30 million people back to work. We need to get that done, and we need to get it done soon. And the sooner we open the doors to these stores and to these businesses, and the sooner that we can get back to business, then these people will have the opportunity to save their businesses and to go on and have what they had, a good job, a good position, and an ability to grow that family and to have that family be successful in what was once the greatest, safest city in the country. Can't say that anymore. It was once the greatest, safest, largest city in the country.
And not too long ago.
No.
Right.
We don't have to go far back.
6 months ago.
Yeah. So as a guy that's been around, you've been around for a long time, a lawmaker, can we get it back?
Yes, we can. We see it in the same thing in the 90s. And, there was a guy came out of the woodwork. There was a guy named Giuliani. He ran against a gentleman in the 80s, lost, and came back in 1993 and won the election. And he changed the outcome of the city. 2,245 homicides that year in one city in this nation. One city, 2,245 homicides. You didn't have that in third world countries. And that man took and he saved this city, and that masterpiece, that piece that he put together, managed to go throughout the world, not just around the country, but around the world, and to save lives across this great, great country and world. And we can do it again. We need that right person, and we need the silent majority to wake up. We need that silent majority to get out and go to the voting booth. Get out there and throw these bums out of office and get people into office that are going to keep their children, their families safe, and their community safe. And that's what you got to do. And that can be done. We just need the right people to step up to the plate and do it.
You talk about voting. I missed one election in my entire life. I'm 61 years old. I've been voting since I turned 18. I never missed an election. When Giuliani ran the first time against Dinkins, the poll said that Dinkins was ahead by 12 points. And I called up the night before. And if you remember how it used to be for our NYPD audience, they'll know you're stuck in court and central booking and everything else for 24 hours. And you're exhausted by the time you're done. And I got home at about 6 o'clock, and the polls were still open till 9. And I just laid down, like, what difference does it make? Because it's a 12-point race. Well, you're laughing. You remember, Dinkins won by a point. By a point. Everybody's vote counted. And I didn't let my vote be counted because I didn't get out and vote. So it really, really is important. I don't know how the voting is going to be, if there's going to be absentee ballots or mail-in ballots or voting in person.
That is
but you got to vote. However the voting is, wherever your jurisdiction is, whoever's watching this, you got to vote. You got to make sure your vote counts.
Paper ballots are a recipe for fraud and disaster. You got to show up at the voting booth, you got to vote. That's what's got to happen here in the city and across this country. We can't allow our vote to be discounted by getting up and allowing this paper not to be counted. We need to get to the voting booth and to vote. And getting back to the police officers again today, because of the legislation that they passed here in the city of New York, how do you arrest somebody? What are you going to do, hand them a business card? Here's my card. If you get an opportunity, hey, turn yourself in when you get a chance. You're not going to come peacefully.
That happened just a few days ago with the guy in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it. We walked away from that. That's correct. That's correct.
With an appointment to come in
Yep.
at his convenience.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what you're going to probably see happening in the future, and that's a shame, because we owe it to each person that's in this city. And I don't care what country. My parents came from Ireland, all right? They had 8 kids in 10 years, my mom and dad. We had no benefits. There was no welfare. There was no food stamps. There was nothing.
People need to respect the police, not because we're any better than anybody, because we're doing a job for the community. Without the police, you just have anarchy. We have the thin blue line here, which is controversial for some reason. I don't understand why. The thin blue line is the line between civilization and anarchy. That's what it is.
Exactly what I've been saying all along.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. We've got to be the leaders. We've got to get people to step up to the plate to do the right thing, and that's why we're having these rallies. You've seen the polls came out.
Yeah.
The polls came out across every ethnic, every
Right.
culture, and it showed almost 80% of the people in all the communities of all cultures and religions want more police in their communities, not less, more
Right.
police.
It's like 15% want less.
It's absolutely insane
Right.
to think that that's what the people, the silent majority, I'll call the 80% of the silent majority, are the actual people that got to get up and do something. Those are the people that got to get out and vote, and they
Right.
got to make a difference so that we can, in the future, go on to call this and continue to call this at one time the greatest city and the greatest nation in the world, and to keep this the greatest nation in the world. We have a lot of stuff going on around the world right now, and believe me, right now you need somebody that's going to be able to lead this great, great country, and that's going to be another issue. And I don't have to tell anybody where I stand. I turn around, I'm 100% with Trump, and Trump should be the next president of the United States because he's uncovering all of this swamp that we see that tried to unelect him and try to get him not to be elected. But on top of that, we see what's going on in other countries. We see what's going on around the world. We need real leadership. That man is a leader, and that's what we need. We need another Giuliani-like person to be the next mayor of this great city. And we need a governor that will be the governor of the state of New York, stand up and do the right thing. We do not have that. We were dealt a bad deck of cards when we got this mayor and this governor. We deserve better.
Well, you know Albany real well. You know City Hall real well. How long would it take to turn New York around? Let's say we got we're going to have a new mayor next a little over a year from now. We're going to have a mayoral election. So we do the population, has like an uprising, a civic uprising, and a right, hardworking, leadership-minded person is elected as the mayor.
The answer is yes. Can that be done? The answer is yes. And once that person is elected, then you've got to change the legislation. So you need the city council, right? So you need this 38 city council members up. So you need the right city council members running next year, right? And the legislators up this body this year is the state and the Senate and the Assembly. So they should be out there concentrating on who they're going to put in office this year. This November, you're going to be electing a state senator. And you're going to be electing an assembly person that represents you in this great, great state. Get out there. Vito Bruno is running for the state senate in my community. Hopefully he is the winner of that election, and he will be a law and order guy, and he will get the facts, and he will do what's right for the people that live in this great city. This type person that was there today, this is just pathetic. And the same thing with, we have a Tenuso, I think, is running for assembly. Tenuso would be a great assemblyman, another law and order guy, a district attorney. And then you got Nicole Maliotakis, who's running for Congress. We need those types of people to be elected into office so that we can change and undo what's been done to our city and to our state and to our nation.
I have to say something. Marty was my senator in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And I saw Marty at like a Boy Scout thing one night, at like 9 o'clock at night in Brooklyn. The next day, I had to drive to Albany on business. I go up to Albany on business. I'm there till like around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm driving home on the thruway, and I pull into the gas station. And then who pulls into the gas pump next to me doing the same drive is Marty.
No
and I'm
chauffeur?
like, so he was in Bay Ridge at 9 o'clock at night. He must have been in Albany at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then he was there all day, and he's driving back to Brooklyn. By the way, it's like a 190-mile drive, to give you an idea. And I'm like, I know you didn't make a lot of money doing a job. It's not like these guys are making $250,000 a year. They don't make a lot of money.
They make more money today than I did. I tell you, I was making $79,500 a year then, and it was a commute, and it's a 2.5 to 3 hour commute. It's about 174 miles, and it is still a trek. And I would do that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to show up at that scouting event, because those scouts are going to be the future leaders of our city, state, and nation. They're going to graduate, and they're going to go to good colleges, and they're going to go to, into military, a number of them, and go on to be leaders of corporations and leaders of business. So it's important that you support your community organizations, and you're out there all the time to see them. We invited all the elected officials to each one of these.
He showed up at everything. He threw out the first pitch at Little League. He was at the Boy Scouts. He was at the communion breakfast.
Each one of these rallies we invited the elected officials.
Oh,
Not one of them showed up.
Oh, the blue rallies.
Not one of them showed up to our police rallies. Not one of them.
Wow.
Would you think there'd be at least some decency to come up and show your support for the men and women in blue? No, they didn't. So that's what you have today. So that's why we need somebody. It doesn't have to be like me, but it has to be somebody that has the gumption, the upbringing, the backbone, and the education and the ability to go forward to make a difference for their community for the right reasons. It's got to be for the right reason.
Do you think there's enough of a storm right now that we can flip a lot of these districts in the next election?
That there's still a little bit of hesitancy. I think people are still a little groggy because of COVID-19, and they're not sure what to do. They don't want to be around people. There's certain things going on. So I do believe it's moving in that direction. Have we hit that actual time? I do believe this time next year we've hit it. I do believe it's going to be tougher this year to do it, but I do believe it can be done. I do believe the silent majority is awake. They've seen this legislation. They see what's going on and the shootings. They're in the papers every single day. The number of robberies, the burglaries. Did you go through Manhattan? You go to Manhattan, our finest hotels. We have the good mayor of the city of New York decided to fill them up with the welfare recipients. Well, that's good, I think, to make sure we take care of those that need. And I think that's what we should be doing. That's what a city is supposed to do. It's supposed to take care of its own. But they got them outside shooting heroin, having sex in the middle of the street, sexual deviance, living in these buildings. What are we doing? What are we showing? We used to get 80 million people used to come to visit this city every year. The greatest city in the greatest nation, not just in this nation, but in the world. And that's why you would get 80 million people a year to come to visit. How are you going to get 80 million people here next year when COVID's over? Why are people coming back to the city of New York when they see what's going on here? They're not. And that's going to be another hurt to our economics, because now you have 275 families leaving per day. That's your tax base. Then you don't have the 80 million people. And maybe you get 60 million, maybe you get 50 million people come. So your tax base is starting to disappear. And so who do you got to go after? You got to go after everybody again to create the tax base to be able to pay for what you've passed, the legislation that you've made and given more government programs out for. So I don't see us in a good economic forecast for a number of years. And the legislation that has to be changed is also going to take time for that to get done at the city level and at the state level. And if that's done, say, this year, if that were to change, it would still take us 2 years to get back. I think our economics is going to bring to at least 2 years. Our real estate about 5 years. And the legislation has to be changed. And if that legislation is not changed soon, we will have dire problems in the future, years to come.
Broke my heart with that thing about real estate.
5 years for our real estate to come back, my dear man.
I should have sold a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh, well. It's all right. I'm not going anywhere. So we covered a little bit Albany, right? Tell us about the city council. The city council passed this diaphragm bill, right? You mentioned it earlier about wrestling with, just wrestling with a guy will cause a cop to violate the law. The law is written, it says if you do it, even if there's no injury sustained by the victim, the cop can still be arrested.
And even if it's not done purposely.
And even if it's not done purposely, thank you. And it goes through and it gets signed by the mayor. How in what universe can adult people who got positions of authority come up with something like this? Don't they have eyes? Don't they have ears? Don't they have experiences in life where, like, they know? Haven't they seen people resist arrest? And even if they hate the cops, they've seen some arrests that they agree with. I mean, how does this come about?
It started with this COVID-19, people being locked up, and then of course we had that terrible death by that police officer. Of course you don't see the tape to lead up to that, but that was a terrible thing for that officer to have his knee on that man's neck for 8 minutes, 9 minutes. All right, so that was the spark for Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and other groups to start to spark. We need to change these laws, and we need to change the legislation that's in these cities and defund these police departments. Well, they did that in many countries years ago, and that's when we seen Hitler. That's when we seen communism. That's when we seen socialism. You can't do that, and the majority of the people of this great country see that. So you only see this in about 5 or 6 large cities where this is going on. Those 5 or 6 large cities will eventually come to their senses, and they will elect the right people, and you will see legislation passed, and you will see things happen that will make a difference for their lives and for the city and for our state and for our nation. But that's all going to take time, and I don't see this all happening in any quick time. I just don't see it happening. I just don't.
So we have one party rule now in everything.
Correct.
The 3 legislative bodies that matter to New York City: the City Council, the Assembly, and the Senate. Our executives, our mayor and our governor are also Democrats. So it's just the Democratic Party controls it.
Well, let's get back to your question, the City Council. The City Council, you got to remember, passed this legislation unbeknownst. They just caved to Black Lives Matter, to Antifa, and to other groups that are in the streets. That was, I'm finishing up my statement, is that's what they did. They caved, and that they wanted to show that they were doing the right thing. But for who? For the people that were rioting in the streets, the people that were looting in the streets. That's what they were doing. They were caving to the wrong people. They weren't caving to their constituents, to the people that sent them to the City Council in the first place, the people that sent them to Albany in the first place. They caved.
How much of it was them caving to the protesters and the Antifa and those anarchy groups, and how much of it was them caving to their party leadership? Is it possible? My problem with one party rule is that now, Corey Johnson or Carl Heastie in the Assembly or Senator Cousins in the Senate, they could, if they got a tight rein on their party, on their members, they could pass whatever they want, right?
I passed the D felony for a possession of a gun. That was my legislation that took guns off the street. Today, the prosecutors aren't prosecuting, and when they do, they tell me, they said bail or no bail, and they're back on the streets, right? We took the guns off the street. There's more guns on the street today than there ever was. There's more guns on the street today than there are pigeons. So what you're seeing is you're seeing people being elected to office that have no true conviction. If you don't have a true conviction, you don't believe in yourself and the morals of this great country, then why are you taking an office in the first place? You owe it to the people, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your upbringing, to what you were brought up for, to be able to be respectful of a constitution, whether it be a city, the state, or a national constitution. You need to be able to stand up and do the right thing. There's no such thing as caving to the party leadership. That is wrong. And if they did that, then they shouldn't be there. They caved with their leadership, with themselves. They caved to groups in the streets that they thought was the right way to go. Well, now they see the polls coming back. Now they see the murder and the blood in the streets of our city. And the children, take that little baby that died, that's been killed, shot. How do you tell that mother that this is right? To defund our police department and to change the legislation and to make it difficult for those police officers to keep their families safe. Think about
But
that.
Marty, when you see Mayor de Blasio, he faces tough questions about that, and he just blows it all off as if we're working towards an agenda, and this is just collateral damage almost.
The silent majority, again, I'm going to go back to them. I keep on going back to, but I'm going to tell you, it's not just the silent majority, it's the people as a whole. You can go on TV all day long, and people, you can say anything you want to say. But at the end of the day, people got to feel, A, safe, B, they got to know that they got good schools, a good opportunity for their children to get a good education, and that last one, they got to make sure they have jobs. If you got that working, then you have a city that's working and a state that's working. Right now, we don't. Right now, we have a problem, and we got to get through that. And next year, there'll be a new mayor. And we got to make sure that come the year and a half when we get the new mayor, that new mayor and that city council is going to do what it's supposed to do. And the same thing in Albany, that they do what they're supposed to do. True convictions, belief in God, belief in country, belief in family. That's what it's all about. And if we can't do that, then we've failed. We failed at our own mission, and we failed the mission of our constituencies.
Well, Marty, you've been an excellent guest. You've been a public servant for many, many decades in many different roles in many different places here in this state, and it's appreciated. Before you go, is there anything you want to say to the cops that are out there now who are holding the line?
Just don't lose it, guys. Do me a favor, hold the line. Make those arrests when they have to be made. Get out there. Unfortunately, you have to put yourself in the middle, and you're going to put yourself in danger and your partner. But you got to keep families alive, and you got to keep yourself. The most important thing at the end of the day is what? Is that you and your partner go home. And you got to make sure that at the end of the day that you and your partner are safe. That's the most important part. But the conviction you have is to keep our community safe. Please, continue to do that. I really feel for you. Your job is really tough today. Your hands are cuffed. You have no ability to be able to make and do the changes and to be able to keep these communities safe as you used to do. So you are disgusted and you're ashamed of what this great city has turned itself into. Have your own convictions, your true convictions. Go out there, fight. Fight for yourself, fight for this city, fight for our communities. Make a difference, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call you Senator because you were my senator so long. Senator Golden, thank you. Marty, friend, thank you. Bob, thanks for helping me out. This is Bob's book, by the way. We want you to go to Amazon right now and buy Case Files of the NYPD. Okay, immediately do it. Go right to Amazon right now and buy this book. Thank you so much. InsideBlue360.com. We'll see you next week.